Do you want to know how to teach a child to think before they act? I specialize in that. I am Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, education, all through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about thinking before you act. I was raised with parents telling me, think before you act. Now, probably they were telling me this because I was not thinking before I was acting. They were trying to instill that vital life lesson into my heart, into my brain. And I think they did a good job because everything I teach here on the Teaching Self-Government channel is all about proactive preparing to be self-governed, and thinking before you act is a big part of self-government. So in this video, what we're going to be talking about is how to really sell the concept of thinking before you act to your children, and then what you can do in daily life to help them learn better about how to make decisions ahead of time. So oftentimes we're thinking to ourselves, they need to think before they act, and it's when they've made a mistake already. So when you're correcting your children, make sure that you don't get emotional about things, and you think of this correction as a good teaching time to just talk about stuff. Now, there are ways that I teach corrections here on the channel. I'm not going to go into detail in this video about that because you can find it elsewhere. However, I am going to say that you being calm and having a tone of acceptance for whatever they did wrong is vital, because now if you're going to talk to them about what they should have done, which is a good part of a really solid correction, not just saying, don't do that, why did you do that? That's a bad correction. A good correction is saying, this is what you did, this is why you shouldn't have done it that way, this is what you should have done. Do you understand? Let's practice it the right way. You praise them, and you work through a learning process with them. If you look at the correction as a learning time and you're teaching them the right way to do things, then you are actually preparing them ahead of time for thinking before they act next time. Now, some people are more impulsive than others. It's harder for them to rein in that impulsivity and to get to a place of thinking. But the more times you do that proactive teaching, the better. So the definition of self-government is being able to determine the cause and effect of any given situation and possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control them. So what that means is that you understand cause and effect and you've made a plan for yourself. Now, this is all front brain work, cognitive function. When a person is emotionally reacting to something, that's usually happening in the amygdala or the midbrain. So what we need to do is help the person stay in front brain or go to front brain more often so that they don't end up falling into that midbrain category where they're just reacting to situations. So this means we have to be proactive in order to be self-governed. So what this means is before I would ever correct my child about something, I'm going to teach them the skills that they need for success first. Then when I correct them, I'm going to refer back to skills that I already taught them so that they can have a point of reference. We're going to continually practice the same skills and the same steps to skills again and again so that my child gets the opportunity to have consistent teaching about the same lessons so that they can start applying them to their daily life. But we're also going to focus on doing some communication as a family and individually to help solve key problems before they become a problem as well. So I'm most known for this book here, Parenting a House United. I have written 11 books related to parenting and self-governing behaviors. We're going to see another one here in a minute. But in this book here, which is my main book, I talk about the parenting skill of pre-teaching. So what I've been referring to here is all the different ways that we pre-teach our children. If you've subscribed to this channel already, then you know that I talk about pre-teaching a lot. There are 3 different types of pre-teaching. pre-teaching, there's instructional pre-teaching, which is what you do way ahead of time before your child ever has an issue. Then there's situational pre-teaching, which you do right in the minute when your child is just about to take action on something to help them have the best chance for success. And then there's prepping, which is when your child really understands the skills of self-government really well. They have a lot of cognitive awareness over themselves. You give them a quick prep in instances where you think they might need it. Now, when you are preparing your children ahead of time at the very beginning of ever teaching them the skills of self-government, you're going to lay out a lot of things. I actually even have charts that you can show your children to help them see how their choices will impact the words that come next out of your mouth. Everything is incredibly predictable, which is super useful at helping them understand how to govern themselves. But we also talk ahead of time about things that are upcoming, even if they weren't talked about when we first rolled out the program. So we have things called family meetings, we have mentor meetings, couples meetings, and we also have sessions where we sit down and do something called S.O.D.A.S exercises. So I have videos on all of these channels about all of those things: family meetings, mentor meetings, and couples meetings, as well as S.O.D.A.S exercises. So I go into more detail there, but I am going to talk just for a moment about the S.O.D.A.S exercise, because I think that process is really key to having good meetings with your child when you want to prepare them for success. This book here is a S.O.D.A.S journal. It has the process for doing a S.O.D.A.S exercise in it. S.O.D.A.S is an acronym that stands for situation, options, disadvantages, advantages, solutions. When you're conducting a S.O.D.A.S exercise with your children, essentially what you are doing is you are helping them problem solve and plan. You're going into their prefrontal cortex, you're doing some front brain work so that they are preparing ahead of time to solve a future problem. This is them thinking before they act. So when do you use S.O.D.A.S problem solving? Well, you might do a S.O.D.A.S exercise when it's a new situation that could be coming up, just to prepare the child for success, like a new social situation, like going to a new club at your church or in your community, and they've never been to something like that before. You're going to prepare them for success, and you're going to say, this is what our situation is going to be like. Maybe someone won't get along with us, or we need to make a new friend. What are our options? So you're going to come up with at least 3 options. Then you're going to come up with the disadvantages and advantages for each of those options and a solution. That's why we have the acronym S.O.D.A.S. So you also might use a S.O.D.A.S exercise when a child has just done something wrong, you've done a correction about it, and you think, maybe they're not actually seeing what other options they have in this type of circumstance. So then you'll do a S.O.D.A.S exercise to prepare them for success in the future. You could also do a S.O.D.A.S exercise when you have a group of people that are having a struggle getting along as well. And the S.O.D.A.S exercises can be used in our meetings when we're discussing issues that the family or the group has noticed need to be solved. So here's another tip that you can use in the moment. In fact, you know what? I'm going to say something right now that needs to go at the very beginning of the bump. Not only am I going to share with you things that you can do way ahead of time to help your child think before they act, but I'm also going to be sharing with you something that you can do right in the moment. So here's something that you can do right in the moment to help your child think before they act. If you are observant and you see that there is a moment coming that they need to think before they act, then you can pre-teach right then by just saying, pause, think. What are your options? We've talked about this before. Or right now, you're embarking on a new social experience. Remember, in our S.O.D.A.S exercise, we talked about what to do when we're in a new social experience or when we want to make new friends. This is one of those times. So now you can pause them and help them go to front brain. If you teach them to pause before you enter a circumstance that's new every single time, they'll actually probably succeed better. And when you pose a question to them like, what do you think your options are? Or What do you think would be a good way to proceed in this circumstance? That allows them to go to front brain, which even if you haven't talked about it ahead of time, gives them more of an opportunity to make a wise decision. It also shows them that you're paying attention, which is actually kind of important. If they know somebody else is watching their actions, then they are more aware of their actions too. It's almost as if you see what you're doing and thinking through the other person's lens, which makes you more aware of, is this decision I'm about to make a good one or not a good one? I've talked a lot in this video about skills and principles of self-government. I'd love for you to get more information about those, and to do that, I've created a free class for you here on the channel. It's called The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. So click on the link to that video now. It is a full-length class, so you'll need a little bit more time, but you will learn the 4 basic skills of self-government, 5 teaching styles for parents, and it will really help you on that track to self-government.